Dan AZEEZ, the British light heavyweight champion, has been ordered to face Thomas Forday for the European title. Dan is currently 17-0 with 11 inside the distance. Thomas Forday 21-4-1 with 2 knockouts. Purse bid deadline is set for December the 1st. In fact, Callum Johnson was supposed to face Foray on December the 3rd, but he, out of the blue, retired. Foray and Johnson were the 4th and 6th ranked contenders, respectively. And after the withdrawal of Johnson, AZEEZ is the next highest ranked available fighter. AZEEZ, nonetheless, will have a run out on December the 17th on a card headlined by Chris Billiam-Smith in Bournemouth. There was an offer put forward to Rocky Fielding to challenge Dan AZEEZ for the British title, but that was declined by Rocky Fielding's team. Should AZEEZ and Foray reach a deal, they will likely meet on December the 17th. If that date is too early, Boxer XX have shows planned in early 2023 on February the 4th with the Taylor-Catterall rematch and Eubank Smith that is expected to land in January, according to Ben Shalom. No Smoke Boxing, which is the site that I'm on, are saying Foray is a step down in opposition for AZEEZ, and many are of the belief that he is a soft fight for the European title. But with the resume of AZEEZ and the approach that he has taken, including winning Southern Area, English, British titles in 50-50 fights, the Londoner can be forgiven for taking an easier contest with a big reward. Well, he didn't nominate Foray. If I'm not mistaken, after all these years, don't the EBU order the challengers for a vacant belt? It's not up to Dan AZEEZ. What do you want him to do? I mean, that's a good payday fighting for the European title. That will increase his ranking, winning the European title. So, if Dan AZEEZ is listening to anybody talking that nonsense there, tell them to go take it to the EBU and lobby for them to get stiffer challengers for the belt. It ain't the boxer's problem. He fights who put in front of him for the belts. Simple as that. Listen, the hypocrisy is frightening. The hypocrisy is frightening. EGIS KLYMAS is begging, and that's the word I'm using now, Eddie Hearn not to stop Fury versus USYK in 2023. As he says here, Eddie Hearn, who is far from Mr. Popular right now in boxing, he says, we represent Hrgovic. We don't represent Fury or USYK. KLYMAS goes correct. He represents Hrgovic, but at the same time, we represent boxing and its fans. At the time, when USYK was mandatory for WBO, for Joshua, and unification was online, USYK was willing to fight Joyce and let the history be made. Well, that's not true. That's not true at all. It's a fucking lie. Now, let's start with the Joyce-USYK purse split. Krushuk told Sky Sports the split should be defined as the average of the last 3 fights of both fighters. And according to his knowledge, it should look like 93% in favour of USYK. The minimum allowed by the WBO is 80-20. Unless the split is officially fixed, any negotiations make no sense as they would not lead to an agreement. Now, he may have read the rule book and he may be legally right, but ethically, you don't get no guy to take a 7% split of a fight, a world-ranked heavyweight, if you really want to fight him. Let's start there. All this shit that we're representing for the boxing fans, well, that wasn't representing for the boxing fan. So he was never going to fight Joe Joyce for the fans like they're claiming they wanted to please. November 2020, OLEKSANDR USYK has given his sternest warning yet that he will not wait for Anthony Joshua to fight Tyson Fury before demanding his own shot. Joshua must fight me or vacate belt. I tell you what, USYK, KLYMAS, get your step-aside money out and go pay Hrgovic and go take your fight with Tyson Fury, which I don't think is going to happen in February or March personally, but we'll see. Like I said before, they should just say fuck Hrgovic, fuck the IBF. If necessary, drop the belt and fight each other, and then we'll see who's the best heavyweight without the IBF belt. My gosh, are boxing fans that limited? I often say that YouTube uploaders who do boxing need to do a certain period of study about old school boxing. Or basically, you don't really know what the standards are, and you do not know what a fight is worth. I don't know if some people are trying to, we got to keep tradition and it's got to be all 4 belts. This ain't about maths. This is about narrative. That's what it's about. I'm not trying to reenact some bullshit revisionist history Nah. Fury versus USYK is an undisputed fight, according to narrative. Before Fury and USYK, Joshua and Wilder were the dominant champions for, let's say, 4 years for Joshua, about 5 for Wilder. USYK beat Joshua twice, and Tyson Fury beat Deontay Wilder twice. Nobody was talking about Philippe Hrgovic. He struggled to get past Zhang, who got a bad gas tank and is an aging fighter. Eddie Hearn and the Sauerlands, they must understand that nobody wants to see Hrgovic versus USYK. Not right now. And they don't want to see Hrgovic fighting for a belt that Alexander Usyk has given up. Let's say he pursues the Fury fight and gives up the belt. If Hrgovic is fighting for the vacant IBF title and it's on my DAZN subscription, I'll watch it, but I'm not paying pay-per-view. And there's going to be a lot of people like me. We're not going to pay for that. That might become the highest illegally streamed fight of the year if they try and pull that off. If anyone thinks that the history books are going to care that they didn't fulfill the IBF mandatory and fight Hrgovic, well, them history books must be absolute useless. Must be made by the millennials. When Muhammad Ali was attempting to become the first man to win the heavyweight title 3 times, they stripped Leon Spinks of one of the belts. Was that a big news story? No, it wasn't. Why? Because Ali was about to make history, and whether it was the fight was for 2 belts, the WBC or WBA, or 1 strap, you were not going to stop that. Ali was larger than life. The fighters made the narrative, not the belts. That was the late 70s. In the 60s, when Ali won the title from Sonny Liston, they stripped him of the WBA title. He was left with the WBC. Most of you don't even know this. Why? Because it wasn't a big deal. Why? He beat Sonny Liston. Twice! I mean, you need 2 sanctioning belts to tell you this is the undisputed champion? Eventually, he got back the WBA belt from Ernie Terrell, but he spent most of the 60s with 1 strap. Do y'all know this? After the Ali era, it was the Larry Holmes era. Now, that WBC belt I told you they took from Ali before he fought Spinks was given to Ken Norton. Norton, unfortunately, is known as the guy who was given a belt. He didn't win it in the ring. Larry Holmes took that belt from Ken Norton. He kept it for about 7 years. The last couple of years of his reign, he held the IBF belt. He didn't want to fight Greg Page, didn't like the money he was getting, and the IBF gave him a strap. Holmes never unified a belt throughout his career, but he's a top 10 heavyweight. Some may say a dominant heavyweight for his era. Never unified a belt. Took the lineal title from Ali when he came back, but he never unified a belt in the ring. That's because the other belt holders who held the WBA straps, they couldn't get their shit together and they couldn't put a run together. So Holmes was still the dominant heavyweight of his era until Mike Tyson came along. I don't remember the magazines ever pressuring Holmes to unify belts like that. The Courtsia fight nearly came off. He had the WBA belt. I believe Holmes may still have had the WBC belt, or maybe the IBF. There may have been a few occasions when they spoke about an undisputed fight, but it wasn't that relevant, really. It wasn't that relevant. I'm sure it was similar in America. In the UK, when Holmes was the WBC champion, yeah, there were champions who had the WBA belt at the same time Holmes had the belt, but Holmes was the heavyweight champion. There wasn't no big emphasis on, oh, he's undisputed or he's not undisputed. No, Holmes was heavyweight champion. Thankfully, we didn't have the media then that we have today, who think they know shit about boxing. They really don't know shit about boxing. The boxing fans were knowledgeable as well. You didn't have to throw sanctioning belts and belts at fights to value a fight back then. That's the big difference. Now, Mike Tyson, a totally different animal, made his debut in 1985 and won his first title in 1986 and tied up all the belts by 1987. And he was able to tie the belts up because there was a unification tournament. If he had to deal with a whole load of politics, he would never have been able to do that. But the fact that he did that, regardless, is just phenomenal. The issue is not with the sanctioning bodies. The sanctioning bodies are going to do what they do. They're inconsistent, they're corrupt, blah, blah, blah. The issue is the boxing fan. You don't have enough historical context, you don't have enough perspective, you don't know the value of the fight. That's why you're relying on a 4th belt to validate undisputed. No, the narrative is set already. Tyson Fury beat Wilder twice, USYK beat Joshua twice. They're both undefeated. The narrative is set already. What more do you want? USYK is an Olympic gold medalist, former cruiserweight undisputed champion. Tyson Fury beat Vladimir Klitschko and snapped his 10-year reign as champion. He knocked out Deontay Wilder twice, who many would consider the most feared puncher of his time, some may even say all time. Do you know what the fight is worth? Or do you need that fourth belt there? Are you reliant on sanctioning bodies? Because if this is what you're saying, you can no longer start throwing shade at sanctioning bodies. You have now become the problem. You are a boxing fan who will bitch, moan, complain. You call people casuals. But here you are, a perfectly good fight, which will end all disputes of who is the best of this era. But you still need to be spoon-fed by some cowboy outfit fronting as a sanctioning body. Is this what I'm hearing? Go do some old school research. Don't be arrogant. Do it. Get some perspective. You can beat the system. We can beat the system. It's easy. It's easy work. You know, instead of yapping off on my channel on social media, unification trumps mandatory and all this crap, unification does not trump mandatory. It might say that in the rule book, but how many unification fights do you get for it to be a proven entity? Don't tell me about rules that are not being activated, because it means nothing. I'm not going to do the research. Life's too short. But if you can pull out 8
undisputed champions
from out the 17 weight classes, then I'll agree that unification supersedes mandatory. Then I'll agree. Because from what I see, there's way more mandatories than unifications. The IBF have made their decision. Eddie Hearn is weaponizing the decision. He can say that he's representing his client, Hrgovic. Fair enough. But to me, he's weaponizing it, and it's like he's trying to pull a power move on Bob Arum and Frank Warren to either disrupt the negotiations between USYK and Fury, or he's trying to throw a scud at the whole thing. He considers them the enemy. Where were they when he done all that running about in Saudi Arabia to get the undisputed fight done, only for them to bail out? Also, Matchroom haven't been out of the heavyweight title picture since 2016, and this has been the most lucrative spell for Matchroom Boxing in the history of Matchroom Boxing. They're not used to it. Eddie has too much ego, too much pride to let Frank be running the show, and they're not involved somehow. So this is Eddie's route back in the game, at least temporarily, is pitching Hrgovic's name into the frame. Eddie is the only global promoter in the game, he is. And outside Tyson Fury, Frank can't really compete with Eddie. That's the truth. But if Frank produces USYK and Fury for Undisputed in 2023 and Tyson Fury wins it, on a commercial debate, you can't really put up much of an argument to say that Frank isn't the top guy, top promoter in the UK. Some may say he is right now, and it's a fair argument. Eddie's trying to make waves, and everybody's falling for it. But if they were just to say, yo, we're going to move on, you go match up Hrgovic with Andy Ruiz, or even Anthony Joshua, who's ranked number 4. Go match him up with them. That'd be the worst thing for AJ to fight for that vacant belt. The worst thing. After losing twice to that guy who gave the belt up, be the worst thing. That'd be terrible PR for AJ. For Andy Ruiz, it would be a great opportunity, but not for Anthony Joshua. The expectations will be higher. Another factor not to overlook is the IBF are very strict on mandatories. Generally. Simple as that. But Eddie is probably going to see how much mileage he can get out of putting Hrgovic's name in the mix. Make a little bit of noise. Look, we're still in the heavyweight title picture. Common sense may prevail, and they do a deal, and Hrgovic steps out the way after being financially compensated. But in all truth, we're still quite a long way off from all of that speculation right there. Because I don't believe Tyson Fury fights Derek Chisora early December, then jumps straight back in camp to fight USYK in January, March, or whenever they're saying. I don't believe it. I don't believe a lot of shit that Tyson Fury says. But this one here, I'm actually taking serious. Tyson Fury predicts imminent death when forced to quit boxing. Now, I believe Tyson Fury was serious when he threatened to retire. He was. I believe that. But Tyson Fury, I'm not going to try and psychologically evaluate him because I'm not qualified to do so. But this guy has issues. And I know where them issues come from. Them issues come from his dad. I can't blame that all on John, because God knows what childhood he had. He said he's going to fight until he physically can't, citing his mental health as the reason that it's impossible for him to quit the sport that has kept him sane. Look what happened to him last time he took the layoff, the 2.5-year layoff. Look how much weight Tyson put on. he was dealing with addiction and depression. Fury told BT Sport that a fresh downfall is never far away. When asked what happens when his body won't allow him to fight anymore, he said, probably imminent death. That's the truth. He said he doesn't know how to answer that. He said the 4 months that he retired recently is the closest he's felt back to how he felt in 2015, 2016, 2017. He said he was back there. Life was very dull and very dark, and there was no way out for him again. I actually believe that story. I do actually believe it. It says here, Fury gave retirement another shot this year following his KO victory over Dillian Whyte in front of a packed Wembley crowd. 6 months later, he's expected to be back in the ring to face old foe Derek Chisora. Why? ? Because he don't know how to quit. Yeah, he's in deep. Tyson Fury is in deep. You know, it's not a good place to be because you can't box forever. Some people have asked me to touch the Errol Spence story where he appeared to be inebriated with the mother of his child. Some people asked me to touch the Eubank story after the interview with Rob Moore, where observers observed that he didn't see himself. Right now, I'm not in a good position because of events in my life to tackle that right now. I'm doing it day by day myself right now. So I'm going to try and keep it boxing for the most part. And maybe later, further down the line, I'll get back to psychoanalyzing and putting the world right. Okay, so let me correct an error from a past weekly. Artur Beterbiev is a Russian and he holds a WBC strap. Now, with the WBC's announcement that they're going to unrank all Russian fighters, he'll be safe because he's a belt holder. If you hold a strap, you're okay. And I'm going to imagine there are legal reasons why they've done it this way. Possibly restraint of trade, lawsuits could hit them. Which makes me wonder, if you're a title belt holder, it won't affect you. What about if you was ranked before the ruling? Are they just going to take your ranking away? Because that could be deemed as restraint of trade. I can't find a ruling where Russian champions are exempt. Beterbiev will be able to fight because he's claiming Canadian citizenship. Dmitry Bivol, who holds the WBA belt, he could be exempt because he hasn't been a Russian citizen for a number of years. So unification with Beterbiev is still viable. There's also some clauses where if you denounce the Putin regime and the military action where you could be exempt. As usual, the WBC have done something and there's a lot of holes in it. It's a bit untidy, isn't it? It's a bit untidy. Let's keep it real. So this weekend we've got Arsen Goulamarian defending his WBA Super World Cruiserweight title against Alexei Igorov. Igorov actually loses his WBC ranking at Bridgerweight because of the ruling against Russian and Belarus fighters. He is one of the casualties. Jaime Munguia takes on Gonzalo Correa, another what looks like soft touch for Jaime. Liam Davis, vacant EBU title against Inyur Baluta, who is the WBC International Super Bantamweight champion. That takes place in Telford, the United Kingdom, and Anthony Yard is on the undercard, having a tune-up against Stefani Koikov. All these cards are scheduled to go ahead on the 19th of November, this Saturday. Well, here's Malik Scott saying that USYK should just fight Deontay Wilder. There's no telling what Fury will do, because Fury is unpredictable. So when Shelley Finkel is saying Eddie Hearn won't come to the table, who is it these guys are targeting to fight? Are you targeting Joshua or USYK or Andy Ruiz? Another question is, are they trying to get out of this Andy Ruiz fight? Because you know what the reward for that is. And the old Gypsy King has said, yeah, he's willing to have a full fight with Deontay Wilder on one condition, that Wilder crosses the pond and has it over here. And that's fair enough, because Fury's beaten 3 times, well, technically 2 times, but 3 times in America, 2 wins and 1 draw. It's only right Deontay Wilder travels to the UK to have the 4th fight. That would be only right. Don't tell a Deontay Wilder fan that, though. They'll somehow reason that Fury should travel back over there again. Fury also says he needs to fight Anthony Joshua before he retires from boxing. That would be a travesty if the fight didn't take place. He says he has unfinished business with Joshua before he can hang up the gloves. He doesn't think he can retire until he fights Joshua because they've been trying to make that fight for years. It's a fight that people want to see. It's a fight that he wants to see as a boxing fan. Maybe you should have gave him more time to iron out some of them stipulations. We could have had it. But that's it, people. I'm all boxed out now. And I'm going to say peace.